So we got a good one today for you. Science of building habits. So one thing that comes to mind, like first off, when I think about this, is Atomic Habits, the book. If you want like the best approach to building habits, go read Atomic Habits by James Clear. By far and away, in my opinion, one of the best books ever, I believe, when it comes to like personal development, but definitely the best book when it comes to habit forming.
Yeah. And if you've already read it, you're like me, go back and read it again and go back and read it again and again and again. It's one of those books that you will need a constant refresher as life goes on and you kind of slip back and you fall back into some old habits and you're like, oh, what's happening? Uh, and you open those first couple chapters of that book, you're like, oh yeah, I haven't been doing that. That's why I've been slipping. That's why I've been falling off track. That's why these old habits are creeping in. And it reignites the strategies, the systems to put in place, the combining the new habit with the existing habit, like little tricks and techniques where you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't have to be super hard and drastically feel like I'm starting from zero. I have momentum despite it being maybe not necessarily in the right direction, but I can combine some of these new habits that I want to do that I know that are beneficial for me with existing habits, and more so, specifically like we talk about something that you do every day, like every morning, like you brush your teeth. Okay, cool. If you want to remember to take your creatine or you want to remember to take your vitamins, like putting those right next to your toothbrush, because it's subconsciously the thing that you do every morning. Boom. Now you're also going to take your vitamins or your supplements. Like it's little things like that that I think are huge, man. Like little tactics and tips I think are super beneficial.
Of course. And let's go through. So I researched like some of the top five things that
Yeah.
it's around like forming a new habit. First off was repetition and consistency. So just like it's going to take a lot more repetitions to help reinforce that behavior and make it automatic. Right. So it's just like just making it a regular practice to remind yourself however you need to at the start to perform it. Whether I've been using that Strides app a lot that I talked about, where
Mm-hmm.
it gives you a reminder at whatever time of the day or multiple times of the day to do things. And it's like if I have 5 workouts I want to get in the week, and I could have it go off at a certain time every morning that I get my workout in, and then it's like, okay, 5 of those days I'm going to work out, 2 of those days I'm going to not. If I want to get my walk in, it's like, what time do you generally go on a walk, or what times can you generally go on a walk? Set the reminder for those few times, and then it's going to go off during the day, and then you can do it, right? It's like over the course of time, you start to not even need that approach, but you could use whatever works best for you, whether it's a reminder on your phone calendar, whether it's like an app, like I said there, whether it's, having a piece of paper that you just have a few, like around the house or in different areas that you look on your mirror, whatever it is. Like there's a lot of different ways. I'm sure whoever's watching or listening to this knows what way you best remember to do things. Use that approach. And then after a certain period of time, whatever that is for you, you're going to just start doing it. And you're not going to necessarily even need the reminders anymore. Maybe you still keep them because it helps you on the days when you're a little bit busier, but that's kind of what comes to mind with repetition and consistency for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. My next one would be start small. Start
Start
very
small.
small. How many minute minuscule steps can you break the thing down into that you want to do and then start there? Like the smallest steps that you can possibly think of. Um, if you wanted to, I think people take these cold turkey approaches, especially come January 1st. And so it's one of those things where like they feel like they've got to revamp their entire life. And if you've done that before, you've probably done things at an unsustainable pace and you may have got the results, but you're like, I don't know how I can keep this up. So if you take a gradual approach and you start as small as you possibly can, in Atomic Habits, they talk about doing the actual activity to set you up for the thing, right? So putting your gym workout clothes or your running clothes or your workout shoes, like laying them right out on the floor, so that when you get up, you basically just step right on them, right? And maybe that's the first step. It's not even going to the gym. It's setting the clothes up so that you have success in the morning when you get up, to get changed, to put them on, to get you in the mindset of doing the thing. I think a lot of people are like, I need to go work out 5 days a week and I'm doing zero now. And that's just a recipe for disaster. So that would be my next tip or tactic would be
Yeah.
Start as small as you possibly can.
When you mentioned as well, like setting up your environment, right? It's
Mm,
like just that is huge, right? Putting your workout clothes out. You could even take it a step further where it's like, I'm going to pack my workout bag, put a banana on top. So I'm going to eat that on the way to the thing. I'm going to fill up my water and put it in the fridge. Like, it's like you could even go as far as just to the point where you got to get up, put your workout clothes on and leave. Like, you got your keys there ready to go. Easy there. That's a great one. Habit stacking is one of the best from Atomic Habits, one of the best ones out there. Just, you already have existing habits in your life, right? You could just sit down first off and list all of the things that you have, whether it's like brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, eating a meal. Just, we all have tons of small things we don't even think about that are just habits that we do throughout the day. And it's attaching this habit that you want to form on the heels of a habit that you already have ingrained. It's like, after I brush my teeth, I'm going to do 15 push-ups, or after I brush my teeth, or after I wake up, I'm going to chug a glass of water, right? It's like these simple things that we can do to just set up our life and make it so much easier to, it's like, you just remember, once you do this, you do this, and then you can do that throughout the day with different things. And all of a sudden, before you know it, it's so much easier to make that a habit because it's just almost a part of a current habit that you have.
yeah, dude, I love that. I'm a huge fan of it because you already have momentum going. So it's like to just kind of piggyback off of it, use that momentum that you already have going, and it seamlessly integrates it. I love that. Another thing that comes to mind that I think people drop the ball on, that when they implement it, it makes a huge difference, and that is tracking. So any form of tracking can be, Alex, you've mentioned the app. What's the name of the app again?
Strides.
Strides. Okay, so you could use Strides. You could use the app. If you're old school, I even like, having those of you that use just like a paper calendar, and you're literally just like crossing the days off you do your workout, or maybe you want to positively reinforce that, so you want to do like a green check mark instead of like a red X, like whatever it is. But tracking, I think, creates this momentum that allows you to keep going. It gives you this sense of progress. Because a lot of times, if you're not tracking, the downside is you could be doing all the things, but it puts you in this mindset of like, man, I've been doing all the things, but I'm not quite there yet. And that's what you focus on, right? Like, you're very outcome driven. This whole game is about process. And so if you can find ways to find wins within the process and you keep focusing on that, before you know it, the outcome will be there as a byproduct. But if your attention is too much on the outcome, you'll struggle because you'll be super upset, even though you're doing all the things, right? Even though you're doing all the right things and you're crushing it, if you don't have a system to track and give you rewards for the small wins, and kind of give you that pat on the back that you're deserving of, it's tough to keep going. So you got to find ways to do that. And I'm a huge fan of tracking. I like even tracking the days that you show up for your workouts. If you my clients, we track water, right? So if you hit a certain amount of water throughout the day, certain amount of steps, like they're just little ticks inside the app. But if you want to do it like on if you wanted to just do it on your journal, like pen and paper, like I like doing this too, right? Just on a
Yeah.
notepad, you can do that as well. If you keep it right there at your sink every morning, and you're like, yep, I remember to be give gratitude today. Did I do that? Cool. Boom. Do a little check mark, right? Put the date next to it. And that kind of like, it gives you momentum. You're like, oh, I got a sense of progress now, versus if you're not doing any tracking. And you could be doing all these things. You could be setting out your workout clothes. You could be showing up to your workout. You could be drinking water. You could be doing better on your sleep. And then you're like, I'm not super ripped yet. You're like, damn, I might as well just, this thing didn't work. Let me try to do the other thing. Right. And you're just like in this cycle, and it sucks. And maybe you've been there. So I would say track in some way, shape, or form, and celebrate those small, quote unquote, little wins. Right. But that's actually where the magic is at.
Of course, and kind of on like the same, along the same lines, is like having positive reinforcement for yourself as well, where it's like giving yourself rewards. I know James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits that it's like combining something you are trying to do with something that you want to do, right? It's like, or like giving yourself a reward, or it's like sometimes it's like if I think he had mentioned something along the lines of, it's like after I do this, after I do my workout, then I'm going to allow myself to look at YouTube for 15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Just something that you want to do, or you could combine like a walk with Netflix. It's like the treadmill, or just these different little things that you can do to make what you're doing more enjoyable. It's like, how can you maybe like exercise? You're looking to exercise. Well, what if you something you love doing is tennis? Could you find somebody to play tennis with you, and that's how you get your exercise in? It's these little things we can do to make things more enjoyable. And then the last thing I have is just patience and like having a realistic time frame for this. Like it, there's been this widely thing like the belief that it's 21 days to build a habit, right? Which is kind of absurd when you think about anybody who's tried to build habits. It doesn't necessarily always take 21 days. And I did a little bit of digging on this because I was curious. And there's been recent research that indicates it could be a lot longer. So even 2000, so this is an older study, 2009, from University College London. On average, it takes about 66 days to form a new behavior to become automatic.
Mm,
However, individual variance consists and says it's anywhere between 18 and 254 days is what they found. Now, a systematic review was done last year in 2024 in a meta-analysis that studied over 2,500 participants across 20 studies and found that habit formation typically ranged anywhere between 106 and 154 days,
mm,
depending on a lot of variance, right? Within
right.
like the individual, the type of habit they were trying to form, their current status with that type of deal, right? So it's influenced by behavioral, individual differences, environmental factors. It's going to be a lot different over the course of time, but just understand that it's more based in just what James Clear talks about. It was page 46 of Atomic Habits. I wrote this down. He talks about it not being about the time passed that determines a habit formation, but the number of successful attempts that you have.
Mm,
And that is a huge thing to go off of. Is like, are you doing this thing? You know, are you focusing on? It's like I do this once a day, and then that's like over the course of time it's going to take a longer period of time, or am I like doing this like a ton of times a day, and then before you know it, it's a lot easier. So certain habits you just do once a day anyway, so you can probably determine that those are going to take a longer period of time than something that you do 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times a day, probably going to take a shorter period of time to become a habit in that case.
yeah, it's cool. Like I love that. When you said that, I immediately thought of Kobe and like the story that he tells about like the 1 to 2 workouts that he has prior to the team workout. So he's like, if everybody's working out together at the team for 2, 3 hours and everybody's progressing and getting better within that 2 to 3 hour time frame, he's like, that's basically like just enough. Right. And so he's basically saying, I'm going to get in the 1 to 2 sessions before we even have the team practice, which gets me obviously gets him a lot more amount of repetitions with the things that he's doing, the drills, everything, right? And he's going to keep doing that. And everybody else basically shows up for the 2 to 3 hour one single practice. It's not good or bad or indifferent, but they're repetitions, the amount of volume that he's getting versus them. And then you expand that over 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, right? Like over a decade. And you've created this separation in terms of exactly what you're talking about. How many reps? Instead of looking at the time frame, like how many repetitions did you get within that time frame? That's a great way to look at it, is because if you're judging it based off like, oh, I've been doing this for 5 months, but you showed up sparingly each week, like one time here, then the next week you did 3, and then the next week you did 0. On paper, yeah, you might have been doing it for months, right? For time. But within those months, how many reps did you get? How many times did you show up? Like how many good reps did you get? Right. Like, so that's a huge difference. I love that. That's great. Because I think a lot of people mess that up and go, and myself included, right? I've been doing this for X amount of time, but what's the quality of repetitions that you've got in there? How many reps have you got within that time frame? That's huge.
Yeah. And understand that like you don't have to be perfect with it too. I think sometimes we beat ourselves up for missing a day of something, and it doesn't matter. Like if you miss a day here and there, it's not going to be the end of the world. Just continue to get back on it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the bounce back. We're never going to be perfect with anything. And when you do miss a day, even if you miss a few days in a week, it's not going to necessarily like move you away from building this habit quicker. It's just a matter of like how quickly can you start doing it again. So
Yeah.
that's all I got. You got anything else to wrap us up here on this one?
No, man, that's good. I think just to tag on that, I would just say it's just you're casting votes, right? They talk about that too. You're casting wins and losses throughout the day. As long as you casted more wins, within that 24 hours, take it as a W, make iterations, be better tomorrow. But it's not about being perfect.
Mhm.
It's not required to get to where you want to go. Just the sheer amount of reps is, and you'll get better at the quality the more repetitions you get in with whatever it is, right? So that's how the skills are built. Skills are built through repetition. So yeah, hopefully you guys like that. If you're practicing habits, if you're trying to improve your habits, share it with someone that you know, like, and love, trust, can benefit from it. That's all we ask for you. We love showing up for you guys. We love answering your questions. We love getting feedback on the pod too. If there's topics you guys are interested in, as always, let us know. So hopefully you enjoyed this one on habits, how to improve your habits today. And hopefully you can implement. If you do, let us know, and we'll catch you on the next one.